So, just quick reminder, there won't be a class next week. We've got a 1 week break next week. Be better in a few weeks' time, you'll have a 6 week break. So next week I'm going to be up at the exhibition, so I brought one of my paintings in that's good. I'm going to put in the exhibition, so that's going to go in. I'll pop that in its frame tonight, and then it's ready to go to London on Thursday. So we hang the exhibition on Thursday. It's on Friday, I think it's the 26th. The prize is usually on Tuesday, so if you do want something to do next Tuesday, you could come up and try with you. I've hopefully I sent an email out last night, hopefully that came through, so if you do want to come up, there's details on there. Or I've got some, there's details on these, so if anybody wants to take one of those. For the booking, so that's the group that I belong to. Some of the artists that are in the book will be in the exhibition. Some have got old and moved on, but they're some in the exhibition. So if you want a taste of the sort of words that we're doing. So then back to the present theme. So as I say, I'm going to keep with the 9 theme for August and the first week of September, which will be the last week before we have a long break. So I just thought I'd talk a little bit more about, a little bit of a revision session actually on colour mixing. But just talking to 1 or 2 people, either this class or the afternoon class, 1 or 2 people look like they need a little bit of a revision. So last week my demo was on sort of drawing out the painting. So I did a very quick kind of wash drawing. So I picked a fairly simple subject this week. Last week was a bit more complicated. So with something like this, I can very quickly just sketch out something. And really most of the drawing could be just with the paint itself. It doesn't need, this is South Church Park, near where I live, at dawn. So that would be enough just to be able to set out painting on that. So obviously something that's, something like this, I probably need to do something a lot more complicated, and that might take me an hour or 2 to just sketch, all the positions where things are. But this would be relatively simple. Then colour-wise, I'll try and lift this up. I found the paint was sliding a bit. So this is like a basic kind of palette, a basic palette you could use. So if anybody's starting out colour mixing, this is what I advise people use. So it's a couple of yellows, a couple of reds, a couple of blues, and then add some white and some, if you're using oils or acrylics, add some white and a bit of brown. So the yellows I use, so all these ideas are really what I was advised to do when I was young, when starting out painting. And then when I started teaching, I wasn't sure what to tell people, because by that time I'd been to college and tried every colour that I could come across really. But I found this book quite useful, particularly with my teaching. And what this advises to do is to start with a couple of the primary colours, and you can create a colour wheel with the primary colour. So primary colours are the ones that you can't really mix. Like you can't really mix a yellow, and you can't really mix a red. They just are really. If you've got a couple of each of the primary colours, if you've got a blue, so the way that the book talks about the primary colours is how they relate to the secondary colours. So how they relate, say, how a yellow is in relation to a green, for instance, or in relation to an orange or a purple. So that's your secondary colours, the ones that you can mix. Now some blues have got a bit more purple in them, and some reds will have a bit more purple in them. So they're the ones that give you the strongest purple. So if you've got a red like a magenta or a crimson, they've got a little bit of purpley feel to them anyway. And if you've got a blue like ultramarine, that's a slightly purpley blue. So if you want to make a purple, that will give you that will be the best ones to use. If you use the other ones, so if you saw that as little arrows on this are sort of pointing towards this colour. If you saw the ones going the other way as pointing away from it, you'll still make something, but it won't be so purple. So what I quite often advise students to do is to come up with one of these colour charts. So this would be the one related to purple. So this is like your very purpley red and the very purpley blue. And that is about as strong a purple as I can make with those really, with those particular two. Now, if I use the ones that's pointing away, remember talked about the circle and pointing away, you get something more like this line at the bottom. So, actually that one, sorry, no, it's that one. That one, that's what I'm supposed to be looking at. So, an orangey red and a greeny blue. So if you mix those together, you get something like that, and that's going more towards brown than it is to purple. Yeah. So it's quite a useful way to think of colours. Your basic colours, your blues, yellows and reds, if you can think of them, how they relate to the secondary colours, like the oranges, the purples and the greens. So that's really the basis of this particular book, and that's kind of the ideas I use when I'm teaching colour. When I was at art school, they used to talk about colours being either warm colours or cool colours, which again is a very popular way of describing colours, but I don't always think it's that easy to relate to. So I like this way where you're describing them relating to like the secondary colours. So that's how that works. So the basic idea is that with these colours, you can mix an awful lot. You can't quite mix everything. Sometimes you need like a particular kind of pink or green or something like that to get a particular colour. But with these, you can get about 80–90% of the colours you want to mix. So I think if you're not sure how to mix colours, this is the best place to start. And then from that, then add in all the others. Just start with some primaries, a couple of yellows, a couple of reds, a couple of blues. And the brown is really there to help make things darker, if you need to make things darker. So, if I was going to go for the sky, probably going to be a few different, it's almost like a kind of yellowy colour. I think a little bit warm, so I'm going to go with the slightly orangey yellow. And if I wanted, no, I think that's probably okay. Look at that. These are water mixable oils. It will work exactly the same with acrylic. Stop now, because this is a bit blue. I'm going to need a slightly stronger colour just to get that to colour. So I can see sort of yellowy colours in there, but I can also see slightly pinky colours. And and this to me is slightly lavender, which is like a purple. So I'll go in with a little bit of the crimson, because I know that will make a purple. And I use ultramarine. That will probably give me a nice lilac-y colour, a little bit of white. Kind of work some of that in there. And a bit stronger, yeah. And then finally we've got bluish colour. Yeah, a bit more white. Let's just get on the brush for that. A bit of water. And make that a little bit darker, just to make it a bit stronger. So these being oils, they'll blend nice and easily. They're a nice, easy medium to use. Yeah, just kind of quickly put that in. I probably would work with where I've got trees. I'll put some colour in there behind there, and then I can either let this dry and then put the trees over the top, or I can work some wet colours into the wet colours, which is what I'm going to do. And because I've scrubbed this in and made it quite thin paint, I should be able to get more colour on top of that. So, again, I was talking about mixing blacks. So basically I just use a little bit of all the dark colours to mix the black. So if I go with some of the dark red, a little bit of the dark blue, that'll get me a nice strong purple colour. And to make that a little bit more neutral, I'll add a little bit of brown in. So that's kind of what I've got there. So that's about as dark as I can get with that. Maybe go a little bit more blue. So you may want to go dark on that, in which case you are going to have to add other colours in. Things like dark green might work or something like that. Or if you want, use black. The way I was taught to make that was probably for most of my life I've never used black. I do use it on occasions now. But when I did my kind of A-levels and then went on to art school, we were encouraged to really mix the colours with colours. And you can get something almost black by mixing things like very dark green, very dark red, a bit of brown, and that's black enough. This is a little bit purpley still, but I think that is dark enough really. Yeah, that gives you strong enough contrast. These trees, I could either go in with a finer brush or just do something a bit more impressionistic, just almost kind of drag the paint over a little bit there. Pick up a little bit of texture. So, is that enough? So, I hope that was useful. As I say, if you are struggling with colour, it's a really good idea to go back to the basics and then just expand. Anybody want to ask anything? All good? Okay.